Hey guys, tonight we're drifting way back, past the tangled roots of history and into the sun-baked cradle of civilization. You're barefoot, your robe is dusted with flour and grain, and the air smells like river clay and slow-boiling beer. Somewhere behind you, someone is shouting about water rations, and two goats are having what looks like a very serious argument. The fields are breathing. You can almost hear them. Rows of barley sway in the evening breeze, catching glimmers of the last golden light. Farmers, wrapped in linen, move slowly and silently now, backs aching, hands calloused, their laughter softer as the day ends. Off in the distance, date palms rustle like whispering voices, and the Euphrates glints silver, bending into the horizon like a serpent curling to sleep. And you? You're just trying to get home, without stepping in another heap of ox dung. But here's the thing. Ancient Mesopotamia may have been the birthplace of writing, math, and the 60-minute hour. But it wasn't exactly built for bedtime safety. With ziggurats that touched the sky, unpredictable gods who turned rivers to blood for fun, and an economy run on mud tokens, let's just say, you probably wouldn't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're just about to pass the barley granaries, those big, beehive-shaped silos that always smell like wet bread, when a voice cuts through the evening air. You there, scribe's errand boy. You blink. That's technically your title, yes, but it doesn't usually get shouted by someone in embroidered sandals. A temple messenger stands under a stone arch, flanked by 2 oxen and a cart laden with scrolls and amphorae. He's tall, draped in wool, dyed that rare river indigo, which can only mean one thing: high priest's business. He gestures sharply. You're needed at the ziggurat. Now. The word ziggurat alone is enough to turn your pulse sideways. That massive, layered mountain of brick and divinity looms in the center of the city, like a stairway, frozen in time. It's where the gods are said to descend, where kings whisper with the divine, and, more practically, where most people are very not allowed. You manage a shaky nod and follow him, sandals slapping the packed earth as the sky deepens into lavender. Along the way, he hands you a tightly wrapped clay scroll, about the size of a forearm and etched with pin-sized cuneiform. It's warm, oddly so, and smells faintly of frankincense and wet stone. Don't drop it, the messenger says, without looking at you. Not unless you want to be turned into a frog. You think he's joking? Mostly. As you pass through the temple gate, everything gets quieter. The noise of the street, goat bleats, wheel creaks, the endless bargaining, dulls like someone stuffed cotton into the air. It's all torches now, and shadows thrown tall across mud-brick walls. Your footsteps echo too loudly. A quick historical aside here. The ziggurat of you're near a similar one, was built in tiers. Imagine a layer cake made entirely of sun-baked brick, towering upwards in rectangles. Scholars estimate tens of thousands of bricks per level, some inscribed with the names of kings who wanted future generations to know who to thank for all this architectural ambition. And that scroll in your arms, that's no grocery list. It's sealed with a mark from the High Temple. Only a handful of people ever touch something like that, and they usually have better sandals. As you round a corner past a line of seated stone bulls, a breeze picks up. It carries the scent of myrrh, clay dust, and something else. Old. Not just historically old, but ancient in a way that tingles under your skin, like a smell remembered from a dream. You glance up. The ziggurat is ahead, tall as a small mountain. Its stairs gleam faintly with polished black stone that doesn't belong to this region. You've heard rumors that these steps aren't just for walking, but for guiding the dead, that they're aligned with the stars, or perhaps with a different version of reality altogether. Historians still argue whether the ziggurat was a temple or an astronomical observatory, or both, depending on the day of the week and how many date wines you've had. You begin your climb. The scroll is heavier now, or maybe your arms are just tired. As you reach the second tier, a group of temple workers pass you going down. One of them whispers, "Moon's full tonight." The air listens more closely. You nod like you know what that means. You don't. Fun fringe fact here. Some clay tablets found near ziggurat sites include what look like weather reports, wind directions, cloud formations, strange red skies. Some scholars believe the temple priests were part meteorologist, part astronomer, part PR department for the gods. The steps begin to narrow. Your breath hitches in your throat. Torches light the way now, flickering orange against the deepening blue of the night. From up here, the city looks like a quilt of warm lights and cold roofs. A dog barks once, then silence. Another turn, another flight of stairs. The higher you go, the less the ziggurat feels like a building. It begins to feel like a presence, like something watching you ascend, brick by brick. You get the odd sense that you're not climbing at all, but being drawn upward, like a bead on a string. A sudden gust of wind presses against your back. You turn. There's no one behind you. Just the sound of reeds swaying in the wind below, and the soft, steady heartbeat of a city that's always halfway between flood and flame. You grip the scroll tighter. One more tier. And somewhere far above, lit by the silver moon, a door waits, half open. The scroll is pulling at you now. Not literally, though you wouldn't be surprised at this point, but with that quiet insistence that certain dreams have. The kind that keep nudging at the edge of sleep, whispering, just a little further. You step onto the third tier platform, where the air is thinner, cooler and heavier all at once. The torches here are fewer and more deliberate, each one set in ornate copper sconces, shaped like long-necked birds with empty eyes. Their flames flicker blue for just a moment as you pass. You tell yourself that's probably just the wind. Probably. A narrow figure waits at the far side of the platform. He wears the sash of a temple scribe, but not the ceremonial gold. This is someone who lives here, breathes this air every day, and probably dreams in cuneiform. He doesn't introduce himself. He just nods at the scroll you carry. "Follow," he says, and turns without another word. You move through a low arch into the first enclosed space of the temple. It's darker than outside, quieter too, like the walls are swallowing your footsteps whole. The corridor smells like crushed herbs and very old paper, with an undercurrent of something chalky and sour, like clay before the kiln. The room ahead opens into a wide chamber, lit by 4 braziers at the corners. Long wooden tables stretch across the stone floor, and each one is cluttered with tablets, some the size of a thumb, others like paving stones. On the far wall is a set of deep cubbyholes, each marked with carved sigils: rain, sun, kingship, debt, barley, star. Some you recognize, others you pretend to recognize. "This is the outer library," the scribe says, placing a hand flat on one of the stone tables. "The real tablets are beneath. This is just for study." You can't help yourself. You lean in to examine a thick slab of clay, etched with thousands of tiny wedges. The writing flows in angled rows, like a school of fish. It's mesmerizing. You could almost swear the script is shifting slightly, like the clay still remembers the hand that pressed it. "Don't touch," the scribe adds, too late for comfort. "Sorry," you mutter, pulling your hand back. He doesn't respond. Historical fact break, woven in seamlessly, of course. The scribes of ancient Mesopotamia were more than just note-takers. They were lawyers, mathematicians, storytellers, and administrators. Some scholars even believe they formed the earliest bureaucratic class, basically the original paper pushers, but with styluses and much worse handwriting. The scribe turns to you again. "The scroll you carry, place it there." He points to a low platform in the center of the room, ringed with inlaid tiles showing moon phases and serpents. You hesitate. The platform looks a little too ceremonial for your liking. But hey, when the man with the ink-stained hands says, "Place the sacred scroll," you place the sacred scroll. The clay scroll settles into a carved depression with a soft thunk. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, very faintly, a low hum begins to pulse from the stone beneath it. You step back instinctively. The scribe doesn't react. Instead, he says, "You've done your part. Return at first light for instruction." "Instruction in what?" you ask. But he's already moving to the back of the chamber, disappearing through a curtain of beads carved from animal bone. You're alone now. Or at least, you seem alone. Another voice speaks, not aloud, but directly into the soft part of your thoughts. It sounds like wind through reeds and sand shifting beneath your feet. It says, "Stay. Okay? Cool. Normal. Very bedtime." You back slowly out of the chamber and retrace your steps down the corridor. But just before you reach the outer stairs again, something stops you. A sound, like a sigh that isn't a sigh. It drifts from a side door half concealed behind a crumbling tapestry. Curious. Of course you are. The door isn't locked. You push it open and step into a room barely larger than a closet. A single oil lamp flickers inside, illuminating shelves of broken tablets and worn scrolls. There's a stool, a reed mat, and a journal. You lift the tablet nearest the lamp. It's wrapped in linen, brittle with age. The cuneiform here is different, less formal, more personal, scrawled in vertical lines, as if whoever wrote this was trying to hide it from their fellow scribes. You read, "They don't know what the scroll does. They only pretend to. Every night it hums louder. I hear voices in the walls. I see writing in my sleep. If I vanish, tell the gods I meant no insult." Well, that's not ominous at all. You return the tablet gently, trying not to breathe too hard. Quirky tidbit time. While most cuneiform texts were about trade, taxes, and laws, archaeologists have uncovered what they believe are dream tablets, recorded visions, nightmares, even jokes. One clay fragment simply reads, "The god appeared, and then we all ran." Honestly, same. You step back into the corridor, ears ringing faintly with something you're not quite ready to name. Outside, the wind has picked up. The night sky is darker now, scattered with 1,000 stars, each one sharp as a chisel point. A sliver of moon watches overhead. And far above, at the very top of the ziggurat, you can see a faint light. Steady, glowing, unnatural. The scroll is no longer in your hands, but somehow it's still with you. You start to climb again. The steps are narrower now, older. Some of them sag in the middle, like they've been weeping under the weight of centuries. The wind claws at your robes, and the city below is a smear of lantern glow and star-lit shadows. Each stair feels less like you're rising, and more like you're crossing some invisible line into memory or myth or whatever sits in between. And above, the ziggurat watches. You reach the 4th tier, where the bricks are darker, more worn, some stamped with seals of kings whose names no one speaks aloud anymore. A pair of stone lions flank the platform. Their mouths are open wide, fangs worn smooth. One has a chipped eye socket, the other's paw crushed flat, but they still radiate that unsettling stillness that statues do when they've seen too much. You step between them. "Third stair from the left is cracked," says a voice from the shadows. You jump, only slightly. Okay, a lot. A figure steps out from behind a tall urn. He's older, maybe 40, which in this world puts him somewhere between village elder and definitely has strong opinions about barley yield. He's wrapped in a simple wool robe and wears a circlet of copper, stamped with the crescent of Nana, god of the moon. "You're early," he says, not unkindly. "Most don't make it this far before midnight." "Wasn't planning to, you admit. Didn't know there was a plan." He chuckles and gestures for you to sit on a low bench built into the wall. From here, you can see out across the rooftops of the city. The river glimmers like a coil of mercury, winding through date groves and gardens gone silver in the moonlight. Somewhere far off, a musician plays a reed flute, the melody soft and spiraling. "You're carrying something old," the priest says, not looking at you. "Not just the scroll. You. Your line is old." You blink. "Like my family?" He nods. "The temple tracks blood, especially those that loop back to the builders, the ones who raised the first stones." You pause. "That's not in my scribe file." He smiles without humor. "Some things aren't written in clay." Historical sidebar. In Mesopotamia, lineage wasn't just about inheritance. It was spiritual capital. Priests claimed descent from divine bloodlines, and builders often passed trade secrets down generations like sacred scripture. Some families carried taboos older than the cities they lived in. The priest leans back and studies the stars. "Do you know what this place was before the ziggurat?" You shake your head. A hill. Just a hill, where the moon rose in perfect alignment 3 nights every year. So they built around it. They carved their questions into brick and called it a temple. He turns to you, voice lower now. But it's not just a temple. Not entirely. Historians still argue whether the ziggurat was for worship, for watching stars, or for keeping something in. You feel it then, a subtle shift in the air, like a breath held in the throat of the world. He rises. "Come. You've earned the right to continue." You follow him to the next flight of stairs. These are narrower still, flanked by carvings of animals you don't recognize. One looks like a lion with wings, another like a serpent with many feet. They're not decorative. They're warnings. Ooh, climb. With each step, the night feels more distant, like the world below is falling away, inch by inch. You swear you can hear your own heartbeat bouncing off the bricks. Then the priest stops. "This is as far as I go. he says. Past here, you walk alone. He hands you a lamp. Not fire. A tiny oil bowl filled with thick blue wax, burning without smoke. The flame pulses in rhythm with something ancient. Don't stray from the stairs, he adds, and whatever you do, don't look behind you until the top. That's not ominous at all. You nod and begin the final ascent of this tier. The stairs curve gently now, hugging the Ziggurat's side. The walls on either side draw closer, forming a narrow channel just wide enough for one person. The silence is immense. You count your steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Behind you, something whispers. You freeze. It's not words exactly, more like the sound a reed makes when it's twisted. Soft, drawn out, wrong. You keep walking. 5, 6, 7. Your breathing is shallow, the kind of tight inhale people do right before lightning hits. 8, 9. The whisper comes again. Closer. You close your eyes and keep going. 10. The passage opens suddenly into a small landing. Before you is a wooden door inlaid with obsidian chips. The carvings are geometric, intricate. A pattern of concentric rectangles inside rectangles, like a maze or a very specific kind of trap. You raise your hand. The scroll hums again. Only. It's not with you, but somehow, in that moment, you feel it. Still warm, still near. You push the door open and step inside. The room is nothing like you expected. Not a shrine, not a vault, not the dramatic echo chamber with a roaring fire pit you were half bracing for. It's quiet, dusty, and weirdly cozy. The walls curve gently inward, forming a circular chamber about the size of a generous kitchen. The floor is tiled in a spiral pattern of black and ochre bricks, and in the center sits a single round table, made not of wood or stone, but what looks like compressed papyrus, hardened over time to a glossy sheen. On the table is the scroll. You stop cold. You didn't bring it. You didn't even carry it past the outer archive. But there it is, lying calmly on a silken mat, as if it simply returned itself. Nope, you say softly. Nope, nope, nope. Your voice doesn't echo. It just gets absorbed into the thick hush of the chamber. The air here is warm, a little dry, and it smells faintly like almonds and something else, something metallic, like old coins soaked in rain. You circle the table once. The scroll doesn't move. You half expect it to unfurl, hiss, or turn into a particularly aggressive snake. Instead, it just sits there, waiting. You notice the walls now. They're covered in murals, ancient ones, painted with mineral dyes in dusty reds, lapis blues, and bone white. They don't depict gods or battles or kings, but maps, or rather paths. Winding, abstract trails that coil and split and loop back on themselves, spiraling inward like the grooves on a snail shell. Each path ends at a central figure, a glowing orb with 7 spokes, like a star made of fire and water. You realize what you're looking at, not just any ziggurat. This one. This room. You're inside the map. Historical sidebar. Ziggurats weren't hollow pyramids. They were layered, complex structures with chambers, corridors, and often shrines tucked into unexpected corners. Some archaeologists believe these spaces were designed to replicate the cosmic mountain, a symbolic ladder between heaven, earth, and the underworld. You reach out, hand hovering above the scroll. The humming begins again. Not loud, but deep, like the vibration of your own ribs when you hum with your mouth closed. As your fingers brush the clay, the room shifts. The spiral beneath your feet seems to twist, and for a moment you feel like you're falling sideways, but your body doesn't move. just your sense of space. Like gravity politely decided to renegotiate its terms. The scroll cracks open. Not literally. There's no breaking or snapping. But the top of it peels like paper catching the first edge of flame, and the cuneiform begins to rearrange itself, line by line, into something alive. You see scenes forming in the air above it. Faint, translucent echoes of time. A woman kneeling in a garden of barley, her hands red with dye as she tattoos a spiral into her thigh. A boy feeding a flame with papyrus scraps, eyes wide as stars, while a voice speaks from the smoke. A temple ox walking in slow circles, its hooves tapping out a rhythm that no one in the scene seems to hear. But you do. Are these memories? You whisper. No one answers. But something inside you shifts. You see a final image now, the top of the ziggurat, under a blood-orange moon. A figure stands there, hooded, motionless, holding the scroll. You can't see their face. You blink, and the vision dissolves. A moment passes, then two. The room feels different now, the silence more watchful. And just like that, a low click echoes from the far wall. A small panel swings open, revealing a narrow passage lit by a flickering orange glow. You know the scroll wants you to follow. Quirky fact drop. Some Mesopotamian rituals were believed to involve guided labyrinths, small architectural mazes built into temple courtyards where supplicants would walk specific paths in meditative silence, hoping for dreams or visions. One tablet suggests these rituals woke the bricks so the gods could smell the prayer through stone. You step into the passage. The floor is soft now, padded with what feels like layers of crushed reeds. The walls here are no longer brick, but woven with rope and thin strips of leather, dyed in looping shapes. It feels less like a hallway and more like a tunnel into something older than language. At the far end is a chamber, lit with nothing but oil lamps set into alcoves, each one shaped like a human face. Not identical faces, each is different. Young, old, serene, sorrowful, laughing. Their mouths hold the flames. You're not alone in here. 6 figures kneel in a circle on the floor, heads bowed, robes patterned with sigils you saw earlier. Star, barley, debt, serpent, moon. One looks up. Her eyes are milky white, not blind, just very, very tired. You brought it, she says simply. You nod, even though you didn't, technically. You are ready to hear. She gestures to the space between them, the empty center of the circle. You sit. The scroll pulses once, behind your eyes. The room dims. The voice returns. Not the tired priestess, not the scribe, not even your own. It's the scroll now, speaking through images and scents and pulses in your spine. It says, you've stepped into the hinge of the world. Past, future, all pressed into clay. You're not sure how long you sit there. Minutes, hours. Maybe the night itself slows to let you listen. When you finally rise, the scroll is gone again. But you don't feel lighter. You feel full. Heavy, with something that isn't knowledge, but the shape of knowledge. And somewhere high above, the wind begins to shift. The passage that leads you out is quieter than the one before. Not silent. No. There's still a whisper in the bricks, a subtle static under your skin, but it's less urgent now. Like the ziggurat has exhaled a little. Like you've passed some test it never bothered to explain. You emerge into open air, the top tier, the summit of the great ziggurat. The city of sprawls beneath you, curled like a sleeping animal along the banks of the Euphrates. Lanterns float on the water in slow clusters. A goat brays somewhere far below. And above you, The moon is huge, full and almost gold, perched perfectly over the horizon like a coin balanced on edge. You're not alone. A woman stands near the edge of the terrace, back to you. She's dressed in linen and bronze, with coils of silver wire wrapped around her arms, like snakes mid-dance. Her hair is long, unbound, stirred by the wind. She doesn't turn. You made it, she says. Depends on the definition, you reply. She finally looks at you, young, but with the kind of gaze that suggests she's watched cities rise and fall like sandcastles. Her pupils are rimmed in green. You know where you are, she asks. You glance around. The top of the ziggurat, she nods. Also, the place between breath and memory, between the record and the dream. Oh good, one of those answers. Still, it tracks. The air up here doesn't feel like air. It's thin and charged, like the seconds before a storm. The kind of place where reality folds just enough to make space for things that aren't quite gods and aren't quite stories. Historical tidbit. The Ziggurat of Ur, likely built during the reign of King Ur-Nammu around 2100 BCE, was dedicated to Nanna, the moon god. While often labelled a temple tower, archaeologists debate whether the top level held a shrine, an astronomical platform, or even a priestly observatory used to track lunar rituals and agricultural cycles. The woman walks toward a raised platform at the center of the summit. Set into it is a circular basin, a mirror of black obsidian, perfectly flat and surrounded by glyphs etched so faintly they're barely visible, unless the moon hits them just right. She gestures. Look. You step closer and peer in. The mirror doesn't reflect your face. Instead, you see a river delta teeming with reeds and water birds, a woman carrying baskets of barley on her shoulders, a merchant arguing with a weaver over the cost of dyed wool, children playing a game with knucklebones beneath a palm. Scenes shimmer and melt one into another. Mud-brick homes, oxen dragging ploughs, scribes hunched over clay tablets, their styluses twitching like the legs of beetles. You're seeing what the scroll saw. You realize that now. All those memories. It's been recording, archiving, whispering to itself in dry clay syllables for generations. Not just facts, but feelings. The breath of daily life, not just the bones. Quirky fact drop. Cuneiform wasn't just for taxes and law, it also recorded dreams, recipes, love spells, even jokes. One tablet from Nippur contains what might be the oldest known "your mum" joke. Proof that humanity's most sacred urge has always been gentle mockery. The woman dips her hand into the obsidian pool, and it ripples, as if made of water after all. She pulls up a small token, a clay cylinder, no bigger than your thumb, covered in tiny symbols. This is your mark, she says, your name, as written by the Ziggurat. You frown. It knows my name. It remembers what your blood forgot. The cylinder is warm in your palm. The cuneiform is too small to read, but it buzzes against your skin like a live wire. Somehow you know. This isn't just your name, it's your shape, the sum of your memories, the shadows you cast, the way your footsteps sound on wet clay. You'll leave with it, she says, but not yet. She gestures again, this time toward a low table under a linen canopy. 2 clay cups sit there, steaming gently beside a bowl of dates and crushed sesame. Sit, she says. Eat, before the last part. You oblige, it would be rude not to. And also, you're suddenly very aware that you haven't had a proper meal since all this started. The dates are soft, sweet, and just a little tangy. The drink tastes like tambali and mint, with a bitter undertone that makes your tongue curl, like a reminder of something you used to love and forgot too soon. She sits across from you, watching the moon rise higher. "They built this tower as a ladder," she says, "but ladders go both ways, up to the gods, down into dreams." You sip again. "And which way am I going?" She smiles. "That depends on what you ask next." You look at her, at the bowl between you, at the city stretching out below. The wind moves again, warm this time, heavy with the scent of incense and river silt. Somewhere far below, a temple drum sounds once, low, final, and then silence. You don't ask anything, yet. You just listen. Because something shifts in that silence after the drum. Not loud, but enough, like the atmosphere clears its throat. The stars above you seem to tilt slightly, rearranging themselves. The air presses in, as if waiting for your next breath to decide something. The woman notices your stillness. "That's good," she says, nodding slowly. "The Ziggurat teaches patience. Few ever learn it." You wonder how many have sat here before you, eating sesame dates, cradling a steaming cup, waiting on the edge of something they don't quite understand. The stone beneath you holds so many footprints, too many to count. She reaches under the low table and pulls out a small wooden box, dark cedar, engraved with inlaid lapis patterns that shift like rivers when the light catches them. It creaks as she opens it, and inside lie 6 small items, each resting in its own felt hollow. A carved ivory comb, a lump of dried myrrh, a painted pebble, a broken stylus, a blackened feather, and 1 golden earring shaped like a crescent moon. "These," she says softly, "are keys." You raise an eyebrow. "To what?" She smiles, almost mischievous. "To the 6 forgotten doors, 1 for each lost chamber of the Ziggurat." You blink. "There are more chambers?" "There are always more chambers." She lets you hold each object, one by one. The comb smells faintly of rose oil. The stylus tingles when your fingers close around it. The feather feels heavier than it looks. And the earring, well, it hums. Just a little. Right behind your eardrum. She explains as you touch them, gently and without hurry. The comb belonged to a priestess of Inanna, goddess of love and war, who was rumored to wash her hair in perfume and never speak to men on Tuesdays. The stylus was broken during a lunar eclipse, mid-sentence, while a scribe recorded a prophecy that's never been finished. The feather? Found wedged in a jar of honey, sealed in a storeroom that hadn't been opened in 400 years. Still fresh. Historians still argue whether the top of Ziggurats was a sacred dwelling, an observatory, or a celestial signal. A space not meant for humans to live, but for the divine to descend. Some think the gods never came. Others think we stopped noticing when they did. The woman nods toward the basin again. "Time to go deeper," she says. You hesitate. "Deeper into what?" Her voice drops to a whisper. "Yourself." And you hate that answer. It feels so vague, so horoscope. But the obsidian pool is glowing now, faintly gold, like moonlight through tea. You approach again and stare into it, and this time, it does show your face. But younger. A memory, not a mirror. You're in a market, maybe 10 years old, clutching a clay toy shaped like a lion. Your mother is haggling over onions in the background. You feel, rather than hear, your own laughter. It skips. Now you're a little older, scraping clay with a reed tool, trying to make cuneiform signs in a schoolroom. You've messed up the god sign for Enki, and the tutor raps your fingers gently, muttering about divine insult. Skip again. Now you're not you. You're a farmer, hands cracked from the sun, whispering thanks to the river after a good flood. Now a potter, shaping wet earth into vessels. Now a child waking from a dream of flying temples and bulls with copper wings. The visions pile like leaves. Some feel familiar, others are alien. But all of them carry something you. Not you, but ancient you. Dream you. The part of you that hums in the bones when you touch something old and can't explain why it makes your heart ache a little. Quirky note. A few Mesopotamian texts suggest that dreams weren't just random brain noise, but messages from gods, ancestors, or even past lives. One clay tablet claims that if a child dreams of a broken gate, it remembers the war its bones once fought. You stagger back from the basin. The woman is already at the edge of the terrace again, staring into the city. "There's one more piece you need," she says, without turning. You're not surprised. The Ziggurat hasn't given up all its tricks. "Follow the goat," she says. You blink. The what now? As if on cue, a white goat appears. Yes, a literal goat, ambling out from behind a column like it owns the place. It regards you with casual disdain, snorts, then clatters down a narrow stairwell on the opposite side of the summit. You glance at her. She shrugs. The scroll likes drama. And that's how you find yourself following a goat down a spiral staircase lined with flickering torches and etched with unfamiliar runes. The deeper you go, the colder it gets. Not icy, but cool, like cellars made of memory. Like something that's been waiting a long time for someone to open the lid again. Eventually, the staircase ends. You're in a circular room again, but this one is much older. The walls are raw stone, no tile, no paint. In the center stands a single column, and atop it, a crown, but not one of gold and jewels. No, this is a circlet of hammered copper set with a single polished obsidian disc. It hums like the scroll. And just like that, you understand. It's not for wearing. It's for listening. The goat gives you a final snort, then trots off into a side passage, probably to complain to the gods about your pace. You step toward the column. The crown pulses once, and then, like water pouring into an empty bowl, your mind fills with something vast and wordless and old. The moment the crown's hum enters you, everything goes quiet. But not the kind of quiet that's empty. It's a full quiet, like standing beneath an ocean, like walking into a room just after everyone else has left, and you can still feel the warmth in the cushions. You don't hear voices, you feel them. 1,000 layered murmurs beneath your skin, pulsing like a heartbeat in reverse. They don't use words exactly, but impressions, flooded fields, grain ripening under a sapphire sky, the weight of a stylus dragging across wet clay, and the unbearable ache of a river that changed its course and left a village behind. The crown isn't speaking to you. It's letting you remember. Because, here's the thing you hadn't quite grasped, the Ziggurat didn't just collect knowledge, it preserved emotion. The collective ache of a civilization pressed into the geometry of bricks, the very shape of yearning baked into its walls. The woman never followed you down. This part is yours alone. You step around the column, and the crown turns slightly, tracking your motion. The obsidian disc at its center flickers with brief flashes, like lightning behind thick cloth. A face, a temple, a broken bowl, each flash sharper than the last, until suddenly, you're standing in a different place, still you, but not. You're barefoot in soft mud, a harvest ceremony. The air smells of spiced date beer and fresh-cut reeds. Drums thrum low in the distance. Someone places a garland of dried barley around your neck. You blink. Now you're in a dark chamber. A priest is drawing a spiral on your forehead with blue paint. He mutters something about the moon's shadow in the well. Your hands are shaking, not from fear, but anticipation. You blink again. Now you're floating down a canal on a reed boat. You're holding a sealed clay jar on your lap, and you know it contains a contract, not for trade, for marriage, your marriage. And it's written in cuneiform so fresh you can still smell the scribe's breath. It goes on, a life unspooling backward. One you've never lived, but somehow aches like an old bruise. Mainstream fact. Marriage contracts in Mesopotamia were detailed and surprisingly progressive, covering everything from dowries and inheritance to, occasionally, clauses about the husband's obligations to not take additional wives. Turns out, even 4,000 years ago, people loved a good prenup. As the vision settles, you become aware of the room again. The crown is silent now. You take a step back. Your knees feel weak, not from fear, but from the sheer weight of it all. Like you've been briefly allowed to lift the edge of something far bigger than your story, only to realize you were inside it the whole time. You hear a soft scraping. The woman is back. She walks into the room like mist. No footsteps, no fanfare. Just presence. She nods at the crown. "It remembered you," she says. You manage a hoarse laugh. "I'm not sure I wanted to be remembered." She shrugs. "No one ever does, but it's better than being erased." She gestures again, toward the wall this time. You hadn't noticed the doorway there before. "Go on," she says. "There's one last place left to see." You move through the arch, your footsteps barely echoing. The air beyond is odd, damp but not mouldy, warm but not stifling, lit by something that isn't fire and doesn't flicker. You walk a narrow corridor that curves gently downward. And then you enter the archive. You know it's the archive because your bones react. The room is impossibly large, wider than the base of the ziggurat should allow. Its walls are lined with shelves, and on every shelf, rows upon rows of clay tablets, scrolls, seals, and tiny figurines rest in utter stillness. Some glow faintly, some whisper. The ceiling stretches up into darkness, vanishing. No torches, just a soft ambient glow, like moonlight soaking through deep water. You approach one of the shelves and lift a tablet. It feels heavier than stone. As you touch it, a voice hums behind your ear, not out loud, but inside your memory. It recites a harvest tally. 6 rows of barley, 3 of lentils, 1 failed crop due to worm rot. Not important, not famous, just real. That's when it clicks for you. This isn't an archive of kings and wars and gods. It's a library of everyone else. The ones who built the walls, swept the steps, made jokes while washing clothes in the river, cursed the wind for drying bricks too fast, wrote poems in the dirt that no one else ever read. You're surrounded by their voices. Quirky tidbit. The Mesopotamians believed that to write something down was to trap its essence. Some scribes reportedly murmured apologies to the clay before impressing their styluses, just in case the spirits were listening. You pass a figurine of a bull with wings. A nameplate in broken Sumerian below. It reads something like Dream Guardian. Its eyes are painted gold. When you touch it, the air trembles slightly. Some part of you wonders, if this archive exists beneath the world, what's waiting above it? But you're not meant to ask that yet. Instead, the woman joins you again, this time holding the small cylinder seal. The one she said held your shape. She presses it into your hand. "You've heard the Ziggurat," she says. "Now it's your turn to speak." You look down at the tablet still warm in your other hand. The stylus waits beside it. And slowly, deliberately, you begin to write. Your fingers curl around the stylus, cool and smooth, like it's waiting for a story only you can tell. You lean over the tablet, the surface soft and pliant under your touch, like fresh mud after rain. The first impression is shaky. Cuneiform signs that look like little wedges and triangles pressed into the clay, half-formed and trembling like a newborn bird trying to fly. You're not a scribe, but the shapes feel familiar, like the echoes of a song you heard once in a dream. The woman watches quietly, her eyes tracing your movements without interruption. You press harder. The signs become clearer. You write about the river, that slow, shimmering artery carrying life and death in equal measure. How its waters turn red with the setting sun. How the fish dart beneath the surface. How the farmers whisper prayers when the floods come too early or too late. You write about the stars overhead, flickering like tiny fires in an endless sky, and about the moon, Nanna's silver face, watching over the city like a guardian. You write about the harvest, barley stalks heavy with grain, woven into sheaves by tired hands. You write about the goat, the one that guided you here, stubborn and sure-footed on narrow staircases of memory. Historical fact, cuneiform writing evolved from simple pictographs into an intricate script used not just for administration, but for literature, poetry, and personal letters, some even written by women. The famous Epic of Gilgamesh is just one example of their rich storytelling tradition. Your script falters when you try to write about yourself. Who are you in this endless weave of clay and river and dust? Are you a visitor? A dreamer? A memory carved into brick? You can't decide. You press on anyway. With each sign, the tablet warms beneath your fingers, as if the clay itself is alive, breathing your words into existence. A gentle breeze wafts in from the open terrace behind you, carrying the scent of date palms and distant incense. The woman's voice breaks the quiet. "Every story needs an ending," she says softly. You glance up, surprised to find her watching you with a small smile. "Not all endings are written in stone," she adds. "Some are whispered into the wind." You nod, feeling the weight of her words settle deep inside. You finish the last line. A final stroke, a delicate wedge pressed into the clay. You sit back, exhausted and elated. The tablet gleams faintly in the moonlight. Your story now part of the Ziggurats' vast memory. Quirky note, some ancient Mesopotamian tablets contained colophons at the end, scribbles or jokes from the scribe, like a signature or a cheeky note, reminding future readers that behind every grand history was a human with quirks and humor. The woman stands and offers you the clay cylinder again, the one with your name, your shape. "Take this with you," she says, "a token of what you've added to the scroll." You hold it at close. The ziggurat hums around you, a living archive that has welcomed your voice into its infinite chorus. You feel a deep, slow peace settling over your bones. The night deepens, shadows stretching like ink over the city below. Your eyes grow heavy, and the woman whispers, almost fading away. "Sleep now. Tomorrow you carry the past into the dawn." You rise slowly, feeling the ancient stone beneath your feet. The ziggurat isn't just a tower anymore. It's a story. Yours. And it's waiting to be told again. You step back onto the terrace. The night air cool and fragrant with the scent of blossoming tamarisk trees and crushed date palms. The city sprawls beneath you, a quiet maze of earthen rooftops and winding canals, lit softly by oil lamps flickering like captive stars. The Tigris and Euphrates shimmer in the distance, slow ribbons of liquid silver weaving their ancient paths through the land. Your body feels lighter, as if some invisible weight has been lifted during your journey beneath the Ziggurats' tears. The woman stands nearby, her gaze tracing the horizon, calm and unhurried. She doesn't speak immediately, allowing the soft murmur of the night to settle between you. You realize you've been holding your breath. Exhaling slowly, you savor the moment. Here, under the vast sky, where the heavens seem close enough to touch. The constellations you studied as a child in dusty fields, the same stars the priests once charted to divine the will of the gods, twinkle steadily, a silent audience to your passage. Historians still debate whether Ziggurats were purely religious centers or if they also served as astronomical observatories, their terraces offering priests unparalleled views of celestial events. Either way, you can't help but feel connected to those ancient stargazers, their quiet prayers carried on the night breeze. The woman finally breaks the silence. "There's a story that the Ziggurat itself was alive," she murmurs, voice low, breathing through the bricks, dreaming through the river's flow. You chuckle softly, the corners of your mouth turning up in surprise. "A living building? That's one for the history books, or the storytellers," you reply, feeling a spark of warmth. She smiles, eyes twinkling. "Maybe both." You turn to look out over the city again, noticing the soft glimmer of a firefly drifting past. The rhythms of life pulse gently below. Fishermen hauling nets, children whispering secrets under date palms, bakers tending their ovens with slow, practiced care. You recall the small rituals you witnessed earlier, the way farmers blessed their tools before dawn, the simple prayers scribbled on clay tablets, the whispered thanks offered to Inanna before a journey. Quirky detail. Some Mesopotamians believed that whispering secrets to the river would carry them safely to the gods. Others thought fish could understand human speech, but only if you sang softly enough. You feel the embrace of this world settle over you, like a warm blanket, the soft hum of ancient life blending seamlessly with the present. Slowly, you close your eyes. The stars above blur and shimmer, their light folding into your breath. You breathe in the weight of centuries, the hopes and dreams layered beneath your feet. And as you exhale, a gentle peace settles over you. The Ziggurats' story has become yours. The final steps down the terrace feel like a slow farewell. Each stone echoes beneath your feet, a whispered goodbye from the ages. The woman lingers at the edge, her silhouette softened by the glow of dawn's first light filtering across the city. You don't ask her name. Somehow it feels unnecessary. She is less a person and more a guardian of this layered memory, a bridge between worlds. You breathe deeply, tasting the cool morning air, scented faintly with baked bread and freshly cut reeds. The bustle of waking life begins to stir below. The merchants setting up stalls, the scent of honey and figs mixing with the river's ever-present murmur. It's a scene as timeless as the Ziggurat itself, one that has repeated countless times, yet feels uniquely yours now. As you descend the steps, your thoughts drift to the riverbanks where fishermen cast their nets and farmers coax shoots from the earth. The everyday miracles of Mesopotamian life, the quiet rituals of gratitude, the careful stewardship of the land and water have taken on new meaning. Historians still argue about the precise role of ziggurats in daily life, but one thing is clear. They were far more than monumental architecture. They were focal points for community, for stories, for connection between the heavens and earth. You find yourself smiling at the thought. Your hand brushes the small cylinder seal, the one carrying your story, warm and weighty in your palm. It's a reminder that even in a civilization thousands of years old, individual voices mattered, that stories carved into clay could survive floods, wars, and the slow erosion of time. Quirky tidbit. Some ancient Mesopotamians believed that wearing a seal could protect you from evil spirits, but losing it meant losing your very identity. So, in a way, you're not just holding a story, you're holding your own ancient shield. As the city awakens around you, the sun's rays spread like liquid gold over mud-brick walls and shimmering canals. You feel a deep calm, the kind that comes from walking through dreams and history at once. The Ziggurats' silent song still hums softly in your veins, a lullaby of brick and river, sky and story. Now, as your eyelids grow heavy and the world begins to blur, you know this journey isn't truly over. It lives within you. And when sleep finally takes you, you carry the ancient world with you into the quiet depths of night. End of script. Sweet dreams.